Hi, everybody. I'm Libby Spencer. I'm the president of the Hopkins County Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us for our Lunch and Learn. We're very excited to have two great speakers today, and I'm excited because I know Sonia, and we met through the Kentucky Chamber, and she was instrumental in us creating our opioid summit that was incredibly successful. It was very impactful. Most of you know, because of COVID, we were unable to continue that program in person, but I have a surprise for you. I have props. Be watching for your training in a box. We're going to be delivering these next week, so I'm really excited. I have to give a huge shout out to Lisa Miller in our office. This was her brainchild. We did create a foundation. This was a grant, so we are able to get information into the hands of HR folks across our community. So just a shameless plug before I turn it over to our speakers today. But again, thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Sonia Osmond, who is a wonderful resource for our community. Hannah Resource is a member of our chamber, but I know Sonia from the Kentucky Chamber, and she's just added value for many years to our community, and I'm glad that she could join us today, as well as Crystal. And I'm going to let her introduce Crystal, who is going to be helping as well with this presentation that I think is incredibly timely. We have several people joining on the phone, and I think I've given my cell phone number to everyone that is calling in, so please text me your questions, and I'm happy to relay those. Also, I see some faces here. Feel free to chime in. I think we all decided an interactive conversation is so much better than just a PowerPoint. So this will be interactive. Please feel free to ask questions either live or through text, and I can relay those. But I'm going to go ahead without further ado and go ahead and turn it over to Sonia.
Thanks, Libby. That was a great introduction. My name is Sonia Osmond. I am a senior business consultant at Hannah Resource Group, and Hannah is stationed out of Lexington. We have an office in Louisville and a new office in Paducah, where I reside. We're very excited to be a member of the Madisonville Chamber of Commerce and what we are involved in. And today we're going to talk about HR for small businesses, and my partner and colleague for many years, Crystal Ballantyne from F&M Bank, will be joining us today. This was actually her brainchild. She asked me to join her with the Murray Chamber a few months ago, and we felt like it was a great success, and we got some good results from that presentation as well. So I just want to hand it over to her and let her introduce herself.
Well, hi, you guys, and thanks for letting Sonia and I participate with you today. I'm going to try to get our slides up here. Is that working for everybody? Can you see the slides? Okay, great. As Sonia said, I am Crystal Ballantyne, and I'm with F&B Bank. We are headquartered in Mayfield, but we also have other locations surrounding Western Kentucky. And I've been an HR professional for about 14 years now. And it's something that I never intended to be. It just kind of fell into my lap, but I have been in the other side of the financial services industry for over 20 years. So now I've actually been in HR longer than I was a banker. I tell people now I'm no longer a banker, I just work in a bank. And I deal with the people side of things. But we think this is a great topic. I think for me, I never really understood HR until I got into a bigger organization, because so many times small businesses do not have someone that's dedicated to that role, and it's very important. And so when we were approached to present this to some of our local Chamber of Commerce's, we thought it was a great opportunity to help our small businesses, because our communities are, the small business is the bread and butter of our communities. And so we're happy to be a part of that and help with that. And we hope that these things that we touch on today will be helpful to you. We're going to tell you just some fun stories, things that we've encountered in HR, because I say that HR professionals could write a book that would keep everybody entertained. We're going to talk about why it's important for your company to have core values. We're going to tell some success stories, some other common HR questions for small businesses, mistakes that small business owners might make in that role. And then the hot topic the last 18 months has obviously been COVID, what people have done, how that has changed our organizations, and then also maybe some simple questions that you can use when you're interviewing people for your businesses. So Sonia, why don't you start with some of our, you won't believe this moments?
These are very interesting. I was thinking about this morning, like what were some of those moments? And for me, a lot of the memorable moments are when I was ghosted by interviews, when people were late or they just didn't show up or they forgot like their appointment was on that day and they thought it was on the next day. So you really have to chuckle at some of that sometimes because you try to understand if they're really interested or if it's just playing that game. But so many times we try to make people at ease when they come in and talk with them and do the interview process. But I know it's nerve-wracking, but just some of those things have just really I giggle at times, just how the situations land.
I agree. As I've said, I'm in the financial services industry. So while times have changed, we still have a certain expectation, I feel like, of what people expect our employees to look like. So therefore, that's kind of what I expect people to look like when they come in for an interview. I was interviewing in a market and the lady came in with shorts and a t-shirt and had on her little Adidas slides with socks on and brought her 9-year-old daughter to the interview with her, which I can understand if you don't have childcare and you need to bring them, that's fine. But she actually brought her into the interview and her daughter was asking questions during the interview and answering questions for her mother instead of the candidate answering those questions. So that is definitely one of my most memorable moments in HR. And then also another one that's kind of on the other side of that is how when we are at work, we become family and we spend more time with our coworkers than a lot of times we do with our own family that live in our household. So what I love is when work becomes that family and you have someone that's going through something that's a really hard time and your work family just provides that support for you. In some cases, work family is all that people have. And so I have seen over the years, we had an employee who got some bad news about her pregnancy and our work family just went together and put her together the biggest basket because they were going to have to be at the hospital for an extended period of time because the baby was going to have to be there for a while after she was born. And just the amount of stuff that people put together to help her to make her feel comfortable, rolls of quarters so that she could get stuff from the vending machines to crossword puzzles to shampoo and conditioner and deodorant, things like that she might need while she's staying at the hospital taking care of that baby. So those memorable moments have the funny side, the bad side, and also the good side of how we become a work family.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, let's dig into core values. I think that this is an important topic because I think as a small business, in your mind what you want your company's mission and vision to be, and you have set in your mind and heart what you want those to be. But if you don't express that, and if you don't let your employees know what that is, then they can't really expect to live up to what those values are. So I have seen that becomes something extremely important in our business, and we're not really considered a small business. But Sonia, what have you seen along the core value side that you think is important for small business owners?
Well, I believe that the core values form like your business culture because what it does is it reflects the ideas and it supports your vision so people can see why you're there and what you're in support of. And I believe if you implement strong values within your business or your organization, it helps contribute to your overall success. So I was looking and I was researching, I was telling Crystal before we started that when we did this, I had made a lot of notes and I had to go back and kind of gather those notes again. But there were 5 different core values that I listed. And the first one is community. Because as a business, we contribute to society as far as like employing, and we do different things inside of our communities, whether it be volunteer work or just going out there and being, the image of our company. Safety, we keep safety at hand on the forefront for our employees and our customers in whatever industry that we're in. Innovation. You have a reputation for like being creative and starting new things within inside of your business, and your people are as well because you empower them to be creative in that respect. And then balance, where you proactively have a work-life balance for your employees, and you offer that across the board. And then last but not least is integrity. And this is showing honesty in all the situations that you come in front of with your business inside and outside of your community.
I agree. One of the core values that we have at our company that is actually the very top is that we value each other. And so I ask my employees often, is what you're doing, is your behavior, coming into work late, not letting someone know you're not going to be there, does that contribute to that core value? By being respectful of your coworkers' time, them covering for you while you're off, and then, how are you contributing to that core value? So by having your core values in place and reminding your people of those core values often, it can help you build your business, but it can also help you when you get to the point where maybe it's turned into a disciplinary action. So you can then tie that back to your core values and say, this is what we're built on. These are what our decisions are based on. So you're either a part of these core values or you're not, and it helps you drive that conversation. And something that I think of too, when I think about our core values is, and my people hear me preach this all the time, what we permit, we promote. So if we allow one person to come in late, or if we allow one person to break the dress code, or if we allow someone else to do that, then basically we're saying that it's okay. So then once one person starts having that kind of behavior, then we allow that from everyone else. How can we go back and change that? So my advice to you, if you don't remember anything else that Sonia and I say today, remember that what you permit, you promote. So if you're allowing that, then that means you're saying that's acceptable for everyone. That comes back to being a parent as well. I have 2 teenage daughters, so I realize with them that what I permit them to do, that means I'm saying that that's okay for them to do as well.
You're close to that, cliche of perception is reality as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we set that precedence and we just let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I have learned, and Sonia and I, we've talked about this too, is we get so busy. We get so busy trying to get our things done, to get our checklist completed, to just deal with the daily operations of your company. Maybe you run a coffee shop and your focus is getting opened, having your things in place, making sure things are ready for your customers. But sometimes we forget to lose sight that our employees expect some things from us as well. So we can't lose sight of that. They want you to say good morning. They want you to ask about their weekend. They want to have interaction with you. Because again, we go back to that thing we talked about at the beginning about being part of a family. So they expect to be treated that way as well. So never underestimate the power of a smile and a good morning to your coworkers. Sonia, what kind of feedback would you have on that?
I think here I want to talk about engagement, because I think this is a huge part of what we're talking about here. And employee engagement is a trending topic right now due to mental health and other things that are going on with the pandemic that's inside of our workplaces. And I was on a call, I think yesterday, with Hannah. They had one of their HR crises, and it was talking about the mental health piece and what different industries are doing to address that. And they had a lot of success stories going on with inside of their 4 walls. And it was very interesting to understand, how they came about with all these really cool innovation ideas that they're helping their employees to go forward and go back into the workplace and not have that fear of coming back or being engaged in the work family again, because that seems to be an issue that we're dealing with. But as Crystal said early on, we are a family, and there are certain things that happen within, the industry. I know that one of the stories that I have is one of my employees called me really late one afternoon and didn't have any food for his family. And it was very heartbreaking to try to understand the situation that he was in. And me, who I'm just like, I have to just do something. So I just went out and to the grocery store without anybody knowing, met him like after work and helped him out with this situation. But I think in those types of cases, we have to look at the situation and know where is our part in this as a company or as an individual. I think these are so important, and this sets the precedent not only for your company, but for what you believe in, and the employees that are coming in after.
I think what you hit on, Sonia, there was important, that it reflects what kind of company you are. So if you're a company that's advertising, we want to make things better for everybody, we're a happy place, but then you don't treat your employees fairly, you don't care about their well-being, then it's not tied back to those core values. So not only do you promote it, but you also have to live it and act it as well. I think those are important things for us to remember. And Sonia also brought up mental health. I just returned from the National SHRM Conference in Las Vegas, and that was the hot topic, is how this pandemic, the sickness, everybody responds to things differently. And if you think about the people that you have been around that has had COVID, you know, you've got the ones that didn't even know they had it. They were only getting tested because they were having a procedure done and ended up testing positive, but they had zero symptoms. They were not even fatigued. They didn't have a cough, never had a temperature. And then you go to the people that have been extremely sick, that have been in the hospital, have taken months and weeks and months to recover. Mental health is kind of the same way. Everybody responds and reacts to things in our lives in different ways. Some people can just take it and keep going and keep moving forward, but others are different. So we have to be mindful of that when we're responding to mental health issues with other issues, as to how people react, and know that not everybody's going to handle those situations like we do or like you do. Or so we have to be cognizant of that and be graceful to remember that we're all created differently, and we need to help with that. So as we were preparing, we also thought about, as a small business, what are some common questions that you might ask that you might have? And this top one is one that I have come across a lot. I have a lot of employees that will come into the environment and say, why can't I just be salaried? You know, that's how they say it. Why can't I just be a salaried employee and get paid the same amount and not have to worry about this time clock? Well, there's a reason for that, and there's a law that does that. And so the reason for that is because it protects them. It protects the employee from not getting paid the time that they need to be paid. So as a small business owner, there are resources out there for you that will help you determine whether or not your employees can be a salary, quote, exempt employee. The Department of Labor has a website. It's called dol.gov. And then Kentucky also has their own Department of Labor website as well. So I would encourage you to look at those if you haven't. It also has all the required postings, posters that you have to post in your lobbies or in your break areas for your employees. So no, not every person can be paid a flat salary and are exempt from overtime. So you have to be very careful with that. And then we have
Also, I think with that question also, Crystal, is am I paying my employees fairly? I think if you haven't done a compensation study, I think that is like a really wise thing to consider, due to like the increasing and the hourly rate. So, and at Hannah, we do those things. We help employers with those types of needs and resources. But the compensation study will give you a broad range of what is going on inside of your industry and with the industries around you, so that you can see if you're really competitive or not. And are you paying them fairly or not? And what do you have to do to go to that next step or to rehash that? And again, it will let you know what that exempt status is as well. I mean, there's 4 points that have to be followed in order for someone to be exempt. I'm working with the company right now that we're looking at all of their jobs because they have some that are on exempt that should be non-exempt. So, that whole conversation's not going to be well taken, but we have to get them in compliance. So, you have to understand if somebody is exempt and has to go to non-exempt, how is that conversation? How are you going to communicate that as well? So make sure you think about that. That's solely important.
Absolutely. And then I think a lot of people shy away from dealing with an underperforming employee. I'm running my business. I just don't like confrontation. And so you don't want to deal with it. Let me tell you from experience, not dealing with it is not the right answer. That is not going to help your business. And I often tell people that it's not confrontation. It's considered just conversation. And people don't know that they're not doing what you want them to do unless you communicate that with them. So you never want to assume that you have told them what they need to know. Make sure that you are communicating with that with them often. And your tone has a lot to do with how it is received. Granted, I have had those few people that my tone can be as sweet as pie, but they still take it the wrong way. But the tone does help, and it does go a long way when you have to have those conversations about performance and things along those lines.
And I think also, Crystal, when this also goes along with, their job description and the expectation of the company and, the vision, as we talked about earlier, if you communicate that up front and they know and they become underperforms, and it's a matter of a conversation and a documentation and following that whole process that you have within your industry of, it shouldn't be a shock when you go to talk to them about their underperformance, because we've had these conversations before. And I think sometimes, like you said, conflict is very hard to deal with, and it's very hard for people to have those conversations. I spoke to a leader just recently, and his employee came to talk to me about a couple of things that he was concerned about. So I went to his leader and I said, okay, so this is going on. And his leader looked at me straight in the eye and said, I'm just not good with people. And I said, okay, well, we're going to have to change that because you're a leader. So if we have to go through some training, if we have to do some personal development or some professional development, let's look at that, because as a leader in this organization, you have to have those conversations no matter what is happening. You have to make sure that that communication line is open with that, and the open door policy as well.
I agree. We just have to have those conversations. I have made that mistake multiple times of, I can't just assume that they know what I want or what is wanted from the company. So we have to make sure that we're very clear with that. COVID has brought up new things for us in the financial services industry. We've always said, our customers need us to be here, need to be present. We haven't really been a remote work type environment, but that's going to change. Things have changed that. So as a small business owner, can your employees work from home? What should you do in that situation? Every business is going to be different, but I can tell you that if you have the opportunity to allow people to work from home and they're a good performing employee and you can make it work, then I think you should be open to that opportunity. For one, it's going to save you money. For two, some people actually do better working from a home environment, and that might be a good thing for your company as well. I know Sonia has been able to do that as well in her roles, and I think it has worked out well for her too.
It has, Crystal. It's been great for me. I'm so productive. I was so productive. On my Christmas holiday, I renovated a room and made a home office out of it, just because that's where I was going to be spending a lot of my time. But another aspect of that, though, is I would encourage you, if you do not have a policy, to create a policy. So
Absolutely.
that expectation is out there. This is what our company believes, and this is what we're going to promote. I've worked with a couple of companies that haven't had that. I'm working with them now to create those policies so that they can have that in place, and their employees know what that expectation is if they should come and ask that question. So it's not that hard conversation or awkward conversation of, I'm not sure what we should do. So here's the policy. This is what's laid out. This is what we discuss. And, our leadership team is here to promote that. So if you don't have one, I highly encourage you to look into that.
And we're going to move right into the next slide, because this kind of goes into what Sonia's talking about. We're talking about documentation. We're talking about have a handbook, have policies in place. So here is just some slides, and we can send these out to you guys afterwards or make these available through the chamber for you. But you want to make sure that you have written documentation of what's expected for people in their positions. You want to be able to maintain professionalism as the boss. I mean, there is a fine line there between being a friend, being a coworker, and being the boss. But you've got to make sure that they understand that's your role. But you cannot expect something from somebody if you don't give them the right tools necessary to do their job. So you have got to provide the proper training for them to understand and know what to do. Sonia, do you have any feedback on those topics?
I just did a little bit on the handbook. I have 3 points that are very important, and I've seen through my consulting work like how important these 3 points are for the industries that I work with that didn't have a handbook or that was revising a handbook. So the first thing is, if you don't have a handbook, I would encourage you to look at getting a handbook, because these 3 points will cover you as an employer, as a small business. First of all, it's clear communication. It is what you accept. It's what your company is going to accept or not accept. And then it's also going to give consistency across the board. So everybody gets treated the same way. All policies are the same implemented. Our leaders are trained on it. And this is how we promote that. And then the last thing is legal reasons. It will protect you from legal issues that might come up inside of your organization. So those 3 points, clear communication, consistency, and legal reasons, are 3 most important ones to keep that, up to date, or if you don't have one, to make sure that you do implement one. As far as job descriptions, same thing. You can't expect someone to perform their job if they don't know what that expectation is, or they don't know what the tasks are, their essential functions, or if they're going to be sitting down all day, if they're going to be standing, or if they're going to be lifting. I've seen a lot of job descriptions and they're not in compliant with the ADA verbiage. So that's another thing. If you're not familiar with that, contact us. We can help you with that. We have a template that we follow to make sure all job descriptions are in line with that and compliance. And as Crystal said, if you don't give your employees the proper tools and resources that they need, like training, like this leader that I was talking about just a minute ago, he's not had any proper training on how to do that or how to have those conversations. So it's good that I recognize that we need to do this and we go forward, but we also go back to them and communicate this. Okay, here's the line of tasks that we're going to give you. Here's the expectation, and this is the end result. Everybody wants to know what that end result is. And that's where the communication comes into. And under communicating, I think is a very well put, because sometimes we think that we're telling and giving all of the whole story or everything that they need to know, and it's not. And at times, I think sometimes they don't ask questions because they think it's kind of stupid, or it's not, they want to perceive that they're not smart. And it's not like that. I mean, as HR people, and professionals, we need to make them at ease with that, to be able to answer or ask those questions that they're not fully understanding, so that they can put forth effort in those expectations that we put upon them.
Yes, I agree with that. And then I'll be honest, when I started in this role in HR, I did not know anything about the federal and state laws regarding employment law. So I have bulleted here for you a few of those that will probably apply to you as a small business lender. So the small business employer, the child labor law, the Fair Labor Standards Act. So that is the part of the law that we were talking about, exempt and non-exempt, and who you can and cannot pay that. If you have over 50 employees in a 75-mile radius, you have to comply with the Family and Medical Leave Act. OSHA, what's safe? Are you being safe for your employees? And then the EEO actually covers all employers with over 15 employees. So if you don't know what that means to you, then you need to look that up on the EEOC website, and that will help you with that.
That disclaimer is also on job descriptions too. I mean, there's an at-will disclaimer as well that's put on job descriptions to make it compliant.
I ask people all the time if they understand what at-will employment means in Kentucky. And so the way I describe it to them is that means that you or I can end our employment at any time without cause, without any notice. So you're not under contract, and and we aren't either when it comes to you. So that's kind of how I try to explain that. But most people don't even realize that Kentucky is an at-will state. So that probably applies to everybody that is on this call today.
Yeah, and if you're doing a handbook, just as a reminder, that should be one of your first things.
Page 1.
That is, yeah. The number one thing that you do is at-will statement.
Yes. And Sonia and her team can help you guys with any of this stuff as it comes to job descriptions, employee handbooks, what laws are applicable to your business. So Hannah is a great resource for all of those things. Another common mistake that we see in small businesses is that you cannot require your employee to work more than 5 hours, consecutive hours, without a meal period. And the state of Kentucky actually says that you must give them at least a 10-minute break for every 4 hours of work. And you cannot dock their pay for that 10-minute break either. I see a lot of people kind of relax on that, but just keep in mind that the law says that you do have to have that available for your employees. I have on here a little note about a special circumstance. So one of my locations is very small. There's only 2 people. And in banking, we have this dual control rules. So that office, the employees do not get a time of period where they are uninterrupted. So I do not make them clock out for lunch, because actually they're not able to take an uninterrupted lunch break. So that is a special circumstance where they just get paid for the full time that they are there, even though they probably do have some downtime. We do not dock their pay because we know that they are kind of always on the clock, since it's the 2 of them there by themselves. All right, so COVID. I would love for this to be interactive, but I know it's so much harder to do that when we are all on virtual. But for us, it has definitely been a challenge. In our industry, we have not been closed one day because of COVID. We remained open. We were still here to service our customers and take care of them. But what has it changed for your industries, for your organizations? What different things have you had to put in place to make that happen? Sonia, what have you seen with your different clients? And
well, there's a lot that have been like remote, and then, a lot of sanitizing, cleaning, distancing, mask, all of the buzzwords, we have seen with them. But as they come back again, they are being very, cautious about what they're doing. They're putting remote policies in place. They're still are doing the social distancing with the mask. And then you have the vaccinated mess with that, and have continued to go down that path. So very excited to hear that, because it seems like their mental health is being improved. The teamwork is being improved. They do get the, Zoom fatigue, but as industries continue to look at that, they change things and they figure out innovative ways for people to meet and to do other things.
I agree with that. And I think we are all waiting for guidance as far as to require a vaccine or not in our industries. For instance, in our industry, sometimes we are considered federal contractors. So with the vaccination mandate, that might mean that we require it and there's no exceptions. So for us, we're waiting to hear more information from that, from legal counsel and from representatives in our industry to see what that means. But I think what we have all learned over the last 18 months is that things aren't going to be the same from day to day. We have to be willing to switch and change and write a new policy in a day's notice, or make a change to work this out. And that's exactly, we have learned to be definitely more resilient and if you have not, if you're one of those people that are afraid of change, then the last 18 months has probably been a disaster for you. Because
Agreed.
all we have done is change over that time.
Agreed. We were on the, I just want to kind of stick this note in there, and I'm not sure like how many people's benefits will or are affected by this, but the lawyer was stating on the HR call on Monday that there may be some like surcharges to benefits for those individuals who aren't being vaccinated. So that may be something that you want to talk to your your benefits administrator about if you're coming into enrollment, because I know that a lot of industries do that at the end of the year. So I was very shocked to hear that, but I had read some buzz information on SHRM that may be happening, and it looks like it is come to fruition.
That would not be a surprise to me at all. Okay, so Sonia and I also wanted to give you guys some resources that you could take back and use. One of the things is some interview questions. I've always.
Uh-oh, your volume went out. Crystal, we can't hear you.
Okay, I can hear you guys again. Are we good? Okay. So here are some interview questions that we are wanting to share with you so that you can use these next time you have an interview. Maybe there's some that you already use, but I think they tell you a lot about someone's personality. One of my favorite questions is the first question. I have learned over the years that if someone had a major conflict with their prior supervisor or manager, that is usually an indication that there might be continual conflicts with someone that's in authority for them. So usually I like to ask this question to read them, to determine how they interact with others, and just to kind of find out more about them. Sonia, what's some of your favorite questions that are on here?
I like the last one. But I'm an HR manager that uses strictly behavioral questions because personality tests are, at times they're expensive, and for small businesses, it usually can be. So I have created like 2-page questions that I use just specifically for behavioral and personality, just to gather that from them, because those questions really give you an insight on how people are going to react in situations, how they're going to make decisions, what their integrity is like, what their ethics are. And those are important depending on whatever industry you're in. Mm-hmm. You're going to want to know that. But the last one here, I really like the fact that, what would you be doing? And like, what would your time consist of at that point? And I think that gives you an insight on, if they have some downtime in their work, what would they be doing? Will it be productive? Will they be thinking about other things? Will they be creating things? So behavioral personality questions are my favorite across the board.
Mm-hmm. I also like to ask a question of what do they think the position is going to be? Because it kind of goes back to that whole conversation about a job description and what are the expectations. So from the very beginning, I like to ask somebody, describe to me what you think this position is that you're interviewing for, so that you hear it from their own words, what they think is the important parts of that position and how they can bring something to that. Libby, can you tell us if we've had any questions submitted?
Yes, we've had a few. Many of them are revolving around vaccination. And I got this from a few people. Are you allowed to ask vaccination status during an interview?
Well, that is interesting because I was looking on Indeed. I had posted an ad, and I wanted to make sure it was posted for a position. And it read, fully vaccinated HR person. HR generalist. Not kidding. I was like, whoa, can we do that? Like, is that legal? So I'm not sure. I would like want to talk to a lawyer before I posted something like that. But that's very
Mhm.
interesting. I have seen that.
I I am not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination,
Exactly.
but I would guess that at this point, you cannot ask that in an interview. That would be my recommendation.
And a
I
follow-up
think I
question.
think it goes against the HIPAA violation in some respect.
Yes.
And someone else did ask, can I ask my current staff if they're vaccinated? They are considering making it a mandate to vaccinate, and they wanted to know if they could ask their current staff their vaccination
Uh,
thoughts.
I will tell you, I have. We have asked our staff, obviously, at this point, it's voluntary. Have you been vaccinated or have you not? That way I could report to kind of our board members. 75% of our employees have been vaccinated. And then I also told the employees that the reason why I'm asking this question is because of President Biden's mandate. And as we prepare for whether or not we have to be compliant with that, we kind of know where we are.
We have several other questions. Do you just want me to shoot them at you?
Sure.
Someone asked, they're in the process of updating their HR manual, and they're curious how often you feel that they should do that. Should it be every year, every 5 years, every 10 years, or when something like this happens, that there's going to be a lot of policy change?
I think you should look at every policy in your company at least annually. That's what we do. We have an annual policy review calendar. And also, as your business owner or HR professional, I have like a running Word document. So as things come up throughout the year, then I'll just put in there, make sure to add this into the employee handbook, or make sure we add this in as a policy. So I would definitely recommend at least annual. Sonia, what are you guys seeing in your?
Yeah. That's what we tell our clients. The best practice is on an annual basis, or if there's a legislative rule that comes out that's immediate, then yes, you need to update it at that point. But a majority and best practices on an annual basis.
Okay.
This question is from Chad. So I'm going to try to relay it, but if I'm relaying it incorrectly, just text me and let me know. But what it sounds like is there is a difficult time finding folks to stay within certain positions. Therefore, the job descriptions are changing pretty regularly. Are there any laws around that if someone's hired and their job description changes mid-shift because maybe someone doesn't show up, or there's a possibility that they can't find someone to fill a position and it changes it pretty drastically? Are there any rules and regulations around that?
Go ahead, Sonia.
And in my opinion, I think if you perform other duties as assigned, you're covered. I mean, that is like my main go-to on a job description, because again, we don't know. Like, I could be an HR manager, but then our operation person's not here and I need to take over something with that. That's other duties as assigned. So I need to go over there and take care of that business. So with that statement, or a statement very similar to that, I think you're covered in that respect. You agree, Crystal? Like, what is your thought?
I would agree. We had someone recently that we posted as a drive-through teller position. But because of COVID and us having to change people around, they were having to be front facing from time to time. And they said, oh, that's not what I was hired to do. But the job description said other duties as assigned. So I just made sure to point that out to say, I understand that. And that is still what your job is the majority of the time. However, we need you here. And so that is what we are assigning you for today. So I think that does cover that.
The last two questions I have sort of combine. A lot of people are asking for your contact information, Sonia, and they want to know more about your company. And also, as a small business, do you feel it is helpful for them to have an HR consultant kind of on retainer, or a lawyer on retainer before they make any huge policy changes?
I'm going to talk to the consultant role, but I love lawyers and I love all my lawyer friends, and they have a lot of expertise. But as a consultant, we can guide and we can and direct. And we can also like create policies and procedures. And what we do is once we do that, the guidance is to allow their lawyer to review those policies and procedures that we recommend and that we give. So the biggest thing that we do at Hannah is everything is A to Z, right? HR. If we haven't done it, we'll figure out how to do it. The biggest thing that I'm doing now with some of my clients is I'm going in and doing assessments. So I'm looking at their overall industry to see where non-compliance exists. And so we do an assessment. We give them a report. I'm actually going to a client tomorrow and I have a 14-page report that I'll be reviewing with them on everything that I noticed. So it's a process that you go through. You look at employee files, you have focus groups that you talk to leaders, you look at their, like if they have posters up in their, that's visible. I mean, it's everything, strategic planning, succession planning. Do they have an HRIS system? How does that work? It just gives them a huge snapshot of what is going on in their industry and what they're compliance with and what they're not compliance with. And then we go in and we talk to them about what projects do they want to tackle at that time. And it's usually either a 12 to 18 month process that we go through to get them in compliance. The company that I'm working with now is going to be an 18-month compliance so that I can get them where they need to be at this point. They did not have an HR department, so I'm pretty much creating it from scratch and getting them where they need to be. But yes, I would recommend them any questions. We can answer any questions for them at like no charge. If we work on a project, then that's when we really get into, you know, the proposal and what those charges and costs are.
Yes, I agree with Sonia on that. And another piece of advice that I would recommend as well, when I was new in this role, I was totally green and I knew nothing about being an HR professional, but building a team, a network of people around you that you can reach out to and ask questions and ask them how they're doing that. So even as a bank, I had a group of about 100 HR professionals in banks across the country. And so when we say, hey, we're rolling out this new position, or do you have a universal banker job description, or how are you guys handling that? I think that group of networking of professionals is valuable to you. And just this morning, I had a group questioning about the vaccinations is what we were doing as a company. So that's a big resource.
Yes.
This is a funny aside, but someone did text that Bruce West and Amy Keith are two wonderful resources here in Hopkins County for HR professionals. So I thought that was really sweet that Amy was on here and she got a shout out. There's no other questions via text. Does anyone on the call have any questions? I saw Leslie join us.
Libby, I put my information in the chat box so that you could have it to share. But they can also visit Hannah Resource Group. We have a website that gives everything that we do. If you look under our team, you'll see my picture and you can click on it and it'll have all my information under that. But it gives you everything that we do. I mean, we have 5 pillars. It's recruiting, compensation and benefits, HROs, onboarding, and we also do training like executive training. I'm actually in the process of doing an executive training here in Paducah. I have a client that I'm working with right now. So that's a really fun job. But if you have someone that needs to go through some executive training or leadership, we also do that as well. Organizational training to go in and look at your organization, and if there's any opportunities, we kind of do like a SWOT. Or we do a DISC on all of your employees to see how the personalities mesh and how that all works. We do on performance management. We look at, we research and get information for companies that need that. And if they're going into a new HRIS system, we research and give them recommendations on that as well. So it's a full gamut. I mean, we cover everything HR. And again, if we don't know how to do it, and you need it done, we'll figure it out for sure.
Well, we are grateful that you choose to be a member of our chamber. Thank you so much for your time and your resources. I know you're going to get lots of phone calls from this webinar, so we're very appreciative to you both. Thank you, Crystal. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
And I hope it's okay. I will be putting this up out on our YouTube channel. And if you do have your PowerPoint presentation, I'd like to send it out to all those that weren't able to log on today. I think this is very helpful information, and I hope we can maybe turn this into a series. We're getting lots of HR questions here at the chamber, and I think having these resources at our members' fingertips is going to be really important for the future. But thank you all for joining us. One last call for questions. If so, you can type them in the chat box, and I'll be happy to relay those on to Crystal and Sonia. And if not, I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Libby, thank you so much for allowing us to be here today and to share this information just at the right time. We're so very grateful to be able to be professionals in our industry and to be able to help people along the way. So, if you need something, don't hesitate to contact us. We are available to assist and to guide and to counsel in whatever areas that your members may need.
Okay. Thank you both so much. We appreciate you. Any closing words, Crystal?
No, ma'am. Thank you all.
Thank you. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all soon. Bye. Thank you.